that this is a very, very easy comp for people who understand where I'm coming from. I don't care if it's a quarterback, a running back, wide receiver, offensive lineman, whatever. If you've got 20-year-olds who clearly aren't ready to perform at a high level, I don't care what your position is. If you got 20-year-olds who aren't ready to perform at a high level, then I'm sorry, you don't get to be in a key spot for a win now roster. My point is this. The conversation Steph Curry and Klay Thompson no doubt had in the offseason is the exact same conversation that George Kittle and Fred Warner probably had this offseason.
And Kyle Juszczyk.
Which is, are we doing this? We are ready to go win the whole thing. Are we going to hand our fortunes over to a 20-year-old who's unproven and untested and inexperienced? It's what both organizations are in the process of doing right now.
And it's different in many ways because, Trey Lance is QB1. He's a 22-year-old with very little experience and a roster that's ready-made to win a championship. On the other side, it's the Golden State Warriors where you're not handing over the keys to the franchise to Wiseman or Kuminga. We're going to put Moses Moody aside for this conversation because he looks to be more ready to go in the role that he's going to play. So I don't think it's fair just because he's young to put him in with Wiseman and Kuminga. To me, it's a Wiseman-Kuminga conversation because the two of them don't look ready to take on the roles that they're being asked to play. Last year, Wiseman was the 16th man on a 15-man team. He was a second-row guy because he was hurt. And Jonathan Kuminga was a change of pace guy who you would throw in very rarely in mini spurts as your 12th or 13th man. Well, this year, you're asking them to be your 8th and 9th man.
Well,
and if they're 8th and 9th man, they better play better than they're playing if you want to be a championship team.
Kuminga's role, as we've seen, is next to nothing, but are we headed to a spot where Wiseman's role is going to be the same? And I think that's the question. Because if he's not going to be able to defend at 7 feet, if he's going to be such a liability out there, then it begs that question. I think it's very important for us to say something very, very clearly right now. At no point have I, have you, have we, and at no point today will we refer to James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, or Trey Lance as busts.
You're not going to use the B word?
These guys...
Bust! But why you got to say it like short?
But what we're talking about here is a concept. And I think where Shasky sort of misunderstood me is he immediately took this to Jimmy Garoppolo.
You love Jimmy.
I don't care if we're even talking about Jimmy.
I had to get that out.
We go make it Cousins. Make
you
it Brady.
You love Jimmy like Bonte loves Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
No, I love winning.
Okay. It's a good sandwich, though.
Yeah, right? You try the breakfast one, too?
I think I'm going to have to run it back. Don't tell supper.
Seriously.
Got a wedding coming up.
I mean, what happened here was the food version of the guys like, okay, we'll do one drink.
Totally.
We'll do one drink. I promise.
That's it.
Just one drink. And then 2 hours later, you're leaning over a bucket. Okay? I mean, I'm like, come on, we're tightening it up. I've already had breakfast this morning. It's 9:30. I don't need to go have Chick-fil-A right now. And now I've got like 4 sandwiches sitting in front of me. And there's no doubt that they're all going to get eaten. So anyway, that be that as it may. No one's calling these people a bust, and this has nothing to do, the 49er end of the conversation, it has nothing to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. It is the concept that a win-now roster is obsessed with winning, and they have no patience, nor should they, no patience for their leaders to come to them and say, okay, we know you guys are really good. We know you've proven everything in this league, and we know you want to win again this year, but we also want to transition to our future, and that may slow our roll a little bit. That's exactly the same thing that has happened with both organizations. And if I'm a veteran on one of these teams, you damn well better believe I'm marching on the office and going, what are we doing? What are we doing right now? Because this isn't going to work. And so it's only 8 games in, and there isn't any panic, and I guarantee you they'll figure it out. I don't know to what level, but right now, what you're watching, this isn't championship basketball.
No, at all.
This is not a formula that's going to lead to June basketball. And I think that there were, Mike Silver in 20 minutes, there were 49er veterans who felt the same way with regard to this season and a brand new quarterback from North Dakota State at age 21.
Yeah, and that's interesting to look at it in terms of the Niners because we don't know how it would have turned out. Trey Lance could have rapidly improved. Trey Lance could have grown into the gig. You might be 4-4 right now, even if Trey Lance was struggling the way he struggled at times. You could still be 4-4. It's not like Jimmy Garoppolo has lit the world on fire. You lost to Denver in a game. Maybe Trey Lance doesn't lose that game. You lost to Kansas City. Trey Lance probably loses that game. You beat the Rams. Maybe Trey doesn't win that. We just don't know how that would have worked out. We do know that the quarterback position is far, far, far more important than James Wiseman and Jonathan Kuminga coming off the bench in a rotation because the Warriors can still be good if neither one of those guys plays a lick the rest of the way. You've got JaMychal Green. When DiVincenzo gets back, you can shorten the rotation. Moses Moody looks like he's a real NBA player. You could probably still be competitive. I don't think you could be a championship team without a deeper bench than what you have with those two sitting down, but it's a much more dramatic look in terms of the quarterback position because it's the most important position.
Right, yeah, you're right that we have no idea how it would have played, but there's two types of sort of young players in any league. This can be baseball, this can be, like we look at it right now, and you can go to Ronald Acuna, and you can go to Juan Soto, and then you can go to Marco Luciano. And they're like, well, wait a minute. How come the Giants' 21, 22-year-old isn't ready to go pop and take a team to a World Series? Well, because he's not. Does that mean he's a bust? No, because you can pop right away. You can be LaMelo Ball, or you can be Jordan Poole, and you can be in the G League for 2 years and then come out and get your $35 million a year. So I've got nothing to say good or bad about where these careers are going. What I'm saying is we are here right now. And right now, there were 49er players who did not feel like Trey Lance was ready to win a Super Bowl. And I think that's a very rational thought, okay? Because we get irrational. We've got shirts and towels and Trey area. A rational thought is that a 21-year-old from North Dakota State's not going to go win the Super Bowl this year. Doesn't mean he's a bad player, okay? And then a very rational thought is James Wiseman and Jonathan Kuminga, who are combined for 4 college basketball games in their career and are 21 years old and are very raw and have dealt with injuries in Wiseman's case, are not ready to come be key pieces on a championship run. And so do I think that Steph Curry sat down with management and went, you know what? Kevin Durant's probably championship ready. And do I think that the 49ers sat there at certain points and went, you know what? Whether it's Jimmy, whether it was Brady a couple of years ago, whether it was Cousins in free agency, or what's behind door number 4, we think that is more likely to win us a championship this year? Yes, I do think those conversations happened, and I do think they're probably right. And it doesn't mean that the organization can't just weigh those conversations with, hey, we've also got a future to think about.
Exactly.
But when you got stars, man, we're fans. Like, you just traded 4 draft picks for Christian McCaffrey. Why? Because you want to win this year. Like, win right now and worry about later is how most fans think.
But they just did win right now, and that's what complicates it for the Golden State Warriors because you've got a recent chip in your pocket. You got your 4th title. So now, if you're ownership, if you're Bob Myers and the rest of them, you're thinking, well, we had enough last year. And yes, we lose Otto Porter Jr., we lose Gary Payton II. Those are bench guys. Our core is back. We can still be competitive because we still have Steph, Clay, Draymond, Wiggins, Poole, and Looney. We've got a great top 6 that we'll put up against any other top 6 in the association. So we can thread this needle by also trying to get Moody and Wiseman and Kuminga and Baldwin and the rest of them. They've got 5 guys under the age of 21. And so, including Ryan Rollins, who's 20 years old. So you have these young draft picks, the rookies. You have your young core of bench guys, and you think, if we could just get 2 of them, maybe 3 of them to pop, along with our top 6, we can serve both ends of this. The 2 timelines can be served, And we don't need to go out and spend a lot on other veterans.
You pointed this out right before the show. We're talking about this. The two timelines. The two timelines is likely chasing a unicorn. Like, let's be honest here.
In terms of championships.
Because the Golden State Warriors are who they are, and they're so amazing, and there's the Steph and Clay and Dre, and we know the story. Because of all that, I think as a fan base, we've decided that it's a rational thought that when they're done, Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins and James Wiseman and Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody are just going to go win championships also. Because that's how it works with the Warriors.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, that's so irrational and highly unlikely. Like, wait, we got Poole. He can score 25 a game. Everybody's got somebody who can score 25 a game. One guy scoring 25 a game gets you a lottery pick. So I'm not telling you the Warriors are going to stink and that these players aren't good, but the idea that you're just going to hand a baton and the next group's going to be just as good as this is, quite frankly, pretty ridiculous.
It's arrogant.
This is a dynasty. You're not going to just replicate this. So my point is, be careful what you hold on to. Oh, man. We've got our future to think about. Well, in the process of thinking about the future, you could lessen your present, and that future that you're thinking about is probably not what you're thinking it's going to be. That's a little bit overly optimistic, Dibs, even for me.
Yes, and that's a shocker to me because you love optimism, but you're also a realist in terms of the likelihood, like you say. So Steph, Clay, and Draymond, let's say that Draymond decides to stay. They decide to keep him and Clay and Steph, and 4 more years, this team is here, and maybe they don't win another championship, but boy, what a run it was. And at that point, you turn it over to Poole, Kuminga, Wiseman, Moody. Wiggins will be 31 at that time. Looney will be 30. And that team, we're going to go out and win another chip.
Win it all.
It just doesn't happen that way.
Right.
The only reason why we saw San Antonio kind of do that is because they were able to get Tim Duncan. You had David Robinson. You won a championship. And then the next year Robinson got hurt. You were the worst team in the association. And you were able to draft Tim Duncan. And then you got Ginobili and Parker in the draft. And that's the only reason why you were able to bridge 2 different eras, so to speak. And then you kind of tacked one on with Kawhi Leonard in 2014. 15 years separated the first championship with the Admiral and the last one with Tim Duncan and Kawhi Leonard. A 15-year span is almost unheard of. It is unheard of.
So it can be done, but not really.
Right.
It's essentially happened once. You know what I mean?
And if they would have kept Kawhi and Kawhi would have gotten another one in San Antonio, then you could look at a 2 timelines sort of thing and say, yeah, 2 timelines, it worked out for San Antonio.
Sure. Even the Los Angeles Lakers through the years who have had 2 dynasties, if you will, just don't forget what happened in between. Okay? You have to have dips. That's usually the way it is. So what am I advocating here? I'm advocating suddenly an openness to this idea. If it does get to a point this season with the Golden State Warriors where it feels like you're letting this season slip away because some of these young guys have too big of a role, they should be open to dealing them because, by the way, their value has already gone down. It's only going to go down further based on the way that they're playing right now. And if we live in an age of analytics, and we do, here's what the analytics say. The high percentage tells you that if you were to trade Wiseman and Kuminga today, the high percentage chance tells you that what you're going to get in return is greater than the sum of what they're going to be 3 years from now. That's just a fact of life. That's not me ripping them. That's not me telling you I don't like the arc of their career. That's telling you that when you've got these young players and the excitement that you feel, the pull you feel, they're homegrown for what they're going to be, it usually isn't that. I mean, that's just life. That's first-round draft picks in every sport. It usually doesn't end up the way you project it in your mind.
And it really depends on what you would be able to get back. And I know that Kyle sent something from Rick Bucher in the overnight thread about what a couple of unnamed scouts, what they think about Kuminga and what they think about Wiseman.
I'll read it for you in a sec.
Yeah, I don't know if you can get back what you think you might be able to get back for these two young players.
Well, again, you're talking about like there would have to be a combination of a veteran just to make money work. I mean,
right.
Yeah, we're talking about probably a Draymond Green trade, if you will, if this is where it goes. I mean, it's way too early to pull a move like that. But I also can guarantee you this: the Warriors are not going to let their season slip away. They're not going to just go. They're 3-5, and it is only November 3rd. So we're not there yet. But
where are you on your worry meter?
None.
Still at a 0? Okay.
0.
Now you said 0. If they lose the last two on this road trip and they come home 3-7,
then there'll be a little percolation sensation.
That's a bug.
In the
Don't miss Tim Roy tonight.
Yeah, and the cosmos will start to move. Okay, you know those lie detectors where the thing will start bouncing a little bit. Okay. Yeah. Let's go to the phones. Then we'll read for you what the unnamed
Thank you.
Eastern Conference scouts said about Wiseman and Kuminga. And Mike Silver in 10 minutes. By the way, Howard Askin from Philly in 40 minutes as well. Remember when he came on this show a month ago and he's like, that's stupid. The Phillies aren't winning a championship this year. That's just dumb. And by the way, neither are the 49ers. We'll see which one, if either he wants to walk back now.
Yeah.
Let's go to Matt in San Rafael, though, on Willard and Dibs. Hey, Matt, what are you doing?
Hey, guys. I just wanted to talk about the thinking of, was Trey a bust, and people already talking about labels like that.
Don't use that word, Matt. Don't use that word. You can describe it differently, but we're not using that word today.
Hey, I'm totally on the other side of the fence. I think when people talk like that, it's just crazy. I mean, the kid's got a ton of upside, and Niner fans are so short-sighted. When we went and drafted him, everyone was over the moon. People were done with Jimmy after the NFC Championship game last year. And if you look at this season, the games that we've won, he had a lead when he came into the Seattle game. McCaffrey played lights out against L.A., and anytime he's asked to put the team on his back, he folds. Denver was one of the most disgusting displays of quarterback play I've seen in the pros in recent memory, and he doubles down by getting another safety in the same 4-week stretch. I mean, we've been winning in spite of and restricted by Jimmy Garoppolo for a long time. So I don't really care what Kittle and Juszczyk want or don't want. It was time for a change. And is Trey the answer? We really don't know. But we know Jimmy's not. So,
well, Matt, I get where you're coming from, and you definitely have some points. You are overstating the negative aspects of Jimmy Garoppolo. That's actually factually true by numbers. I mean, you're ripping his play this year. The Denver game was gross, and since then, just go look at it.
9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
He's been good.
QB rating of 99. These are your numbers. Yeah. I'm saving you the effort.
Great. No. Good. Yes. Good enough for this team. Hell yes. But again, I'm trying to remove Jimmy from this conversation because Trey Lance right now actually still gets the benefit.
He sure does.
That James Wiseman does and Kuminga does and even Jordan Poole and Moses Moody and PBJ. They all get the same benefit.
But the Niners
we don't know.
Well, yeah,
we don't know.
The beauty of the Niners is that they don't. Trey Lance doesn't have to factor into this year's championship run, to your point.
Correct.
That's where the benefit swings a little bit because Wiseman and or Kuminga, I mean, they need to contribute, right, in order for this thing to happen.
March is going to be nuts. Can I just tell all you right now? Mark this down so that we can bring
the tape.
Mark it down so that we can bring this back in March. March is going to be ape bleep on this station.
Tell me why, Mark.
Because
we'll
be approaching Warrior playoffs, and we'll see where they're at. But the 49ers season will be over, and what they are going to do next at the quarterback position is going to be so opinionated. That prediction, so opinionated.
Aaron Judge in Scottsdale?
Yeah, totally.
In March?
Yeah. Well, the Dodgers play there too, don't they? But anyway, no, I understand.
Do they?
No, not in Scottsdale, but they're
not in Florida anymore?
Not anymore, no.
That's a shame. Is anyone in Florida anymore?
Vero Beach is long gone.